Hey everybody, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we are going to be looking at the Tier 10, I guess you want to call it super heavy cruiser, the Defense. This is the most recent addition into the Armory for a whopping 415,000 coal. Yikes, that is up there. But I'm assuming the price hike for this particular ship is due to the fact of the Steel Will event that happened, or not Steel, was it Steel Will event? I can't remember. It was an event that happened a couple years back, or was it last year? One of the two. Where the defense was, the salvage for victory or something like that event, where the this ship was one of the ships that you could get incrementally throughout giving enough resources to obtain her. I think she was the third ship or the ship right before the Kitakami, I believe was the ship. So they want to make sure they pay like tribute to those people who are willing to spend the resources up front to get that ship nowadays or back now after 2 years later, something like that. So anyways, this ship is a high price to obtain her, and I want to be answering the question, or at least having a discussion, whether or not she's worth it. Now, I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit, and I've seen a lot of people discussing her and asking the question, is she worth it? Is she worth it? And a lot of people saying, no, it's way too high. Some people saying, yes, yes, here, and this is why. And this is my take on the ship, okay? Before we even start getting into the review about the ship or what the ship's kind of about or how she plays, I think if you have a coupon and you have a lot of other coal ships, absolutely. Go ahead and pick her up. Why not? Add her to the arsenal. I think she's a fun ship. I don't want to get into too much about the ship right now, but I think she's a fun ship. And she definitely has an interesting play style, to say the least. But if you do not have the coupon and you're trying to allocate other resources like converting steel, which you should never do, to go ahead and pick up this ship, I just think flat out she's not. That price is way too high. And I think there's a lot of other ships you could obtain or should obtain that's just going to be more fun for you and a little bit more impactful in battle, such as the Napoli. I've done a review on that on my channel before. And matter of fact, you should go check that video out, even though the audio is ass. I kind of fucked up the audio there. But the Napoli, the premise stays the same. The Napoli is probably one of my favorite ships and highly recommended ships in the Armory to this date, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon. So if you don't have the Napoli, maybe you should go look at that ship as your next coal ship rather than the Defense, okay? But with that said, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and kind of get into what the Defense is, talk a little bit about her. Now, obviously, I have a couple battles to show you guys. These aren't like particularly phenomenal battles. It's more or less just highlights of the ship to kind of showcase how the ship's playstyle is, what her premise is, some strengths, some weaknesses, that sort of stuff. This isn't going to be like full on like a review about the ship that I usually do on this channel. This is more or less just a highlight of what the ship can do while in battle, and whether or not, if you like what you see, whether or not you should go ahead and pick her up based upon your opinions and your opinions alone. Now, obviously, Wargaming told us, or has told us, some key features of the ship and kind of what this thing is, like pros and con wise. Obviously, this ship has a high main battery firing accuracy and armor penetration capabilities. Obviously, the AHE shells have an increased chance to cause a fire. So basically, Wargaming saying they have a high chance to cause a fire, as most Royal Navy ships do, right? AP shells with a reduced chance of ricocheting, and we'll get into that, talking about the enhanced ricochet. I don't know if they have enhanced ricochet angles. They might actually have enhanced ricochet angles. I think they do. I have to double check on that. But the penetration values and the fuse times obviously are a little bit less, which is going to increase the likelihood of you scoring those Citadel ribbons, because there's less armor that is needed to go ahead and penetrate in order for those fuses to detonate within the ship. Some negative some negative things that they say about the ship is that the low main battery damage per minute. Obviously, yes, you only have 6 guns, and these are 356 millimeter guns on a cruiser, which are quite large, I might add. And you have low gun traverse speed, but obviously that isn't that big of a factor, given the fact that all 3 of your turrets are forward mounting, right? They're all on the forward end of the ship, so you could kind of get around that. And it shouldn't really be that big of a detriment to your playstyle or your gameplay. So figured I'd just throw that out there right out the gates, right? But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the main battery first. I think that's where you should always start, because that's like the bread and butter of the ship. Matter of fact, could be a big reason why you pick up the ship. So the Defense, in my opinion, is a ship that is trying to amount to that of like not necessarily like a Stalingrad levels of stuff. Obviously, I wouldn't say that. I guess like a Sevastopol, kind of like a heavier cruiser that can obviously shit on lighter cruisers, like you're getting ready to see on this broadside Minotaur, which most cruisers could do. That's really nothing special, but also being able to withstand some punishment in regards from just damage over time or from large caliber AP, such as like battleships and whatnot, right? And for the most part, they got that right. With a name like the Defense, I couldn't think there'd be a worse name they could have picked for this ship in regards of its design. I don't know if Wargaming knew what they kind of wanted with this ship, because this ship, in my opinion, really has no flat out like direction. I don't know if Wargaming knew what they wanted to do with this ship, so they kind of just threw a bunch of shit together and said, "Fuck, here you go. Maybe this will be enough for people to consider doing that Christmas event, whaling for it, getting her, you know." More of a reason other than just the Kitakami. Obviously, I think the Kitakami is a terrible ship in regards of its utility and what it does. It's what we call a one-trick pony. All it has is torpedoes, so it's really not going to bring anything else to the table. Whereas the Defense, I would say, has one or two more things, but even then, its design is so flawed in so many ways, and hopefully I'm going to be able to illustrate that here in a little bit for you guys, because trying to just sum up what this thing does, you have 6 356 millimeter guns. They're all forward mounted. These are big guns. They have those infused AP time, or the shortened fuse times at 0.015 seconds, which I think like short fuse is what 0.005 seconds, right? But you do have the you can overmatch 24 millimeters of effective armor. And I do think that if you look at the ricochet angles, you do actually have improved ricochet angles, much like the Des Moines with the 60 to 68 degrees of ricochet angles, which is very nice. And your penetration is incredibly high with these guns, as it should be, given the fact of all these, things combine into one, right? All these kind of gimmicks of your penetration, your ricochet, your thresholds, your fuse times, all of it basically creating a very comfortable artillery to use. I do find these shells to be a little bit floaty. Not that bad, though. I mean, your maximum main battery range is only 18. Oh, not 18, my bad. It's only 18.3 kilometers of range, which again is actually respectable. So when you're pushing out past 16, I understand how these shells could be a little hard to lead. Though for me, it's right there. It's comfortable enough, but I can understand why. We're not talking like Des Moines and Worcester levels of floaty shells. We're not talking like that, but I can see when you're pushing out to those longer ranges, you are going to have to lead a little bit more than you would think you'd have to lead. So that is just something to keep in mind. But continuing on about the main battery, so we talked a little bit about the armor piercing. We might as well talk about the HE, and the HE is, again, you shouldn't be surprised by these numbers, because the Royal Navy really does have phenomenal HE when it comes to like the Goliath, the Conqueror, the Thunderer, things like that nature, ships of that nature. You understand kind of what they do and what they do well, and they definitely burn a lot of ships down and take no prisoners. That is for sure. So going in line with the HE, the Defense does have a whopping 41% fire chance, and again, that coupled with a reload time of 18 seconds, I think it's coming down coming to our fires per minute, which is going around at 8.2 fires per minute, which again is not bad. Your HE is going to go ahead and pen 89 millimeters of armor, and your maximum damage is 6,100, which is pretty damn respectable. The HE is very spicy on this ship. You're going to be starting a lot of fires, so this ship can be utilized as a really good fire starter to go ahead and knock out certain missions for certain events. I definitely utilize this every now and then as well. I mean, obviously DPM is going to be a better fire starting, like the Colbert, the Smolensk, the Worcester. You're just going to get more fire just because your guns are so rapid fire. You're just going to get more fires that way in total. But again, this is choosing more of a quality rather than quantity kind of approach to a ship with its artillery. And you're going to notice that as well. I do have to mention that the ship is butt-ass ugly. I mean, this thing is fucking disgusting, which is kind of funny because I think there are a lot of Royal Navy ships that fit this build of just gross looking. I'm looking at you, Goliath. I don't think the Goliath is like a particularly pretty looking ship. I don't know what it is, but the pure aesthetic of Royal Navy ships really just look kind of meh, in my opinion. There are definitely other nations take a little bit more pride in their, I guess you want to say, like ship design. So. But yes, moving on into the next battle. So hopefully you guys are watching the background footage and you're kind of seeing what this thing can do. Obviously, pretty damn good punching AP. Very, very spicy HE. But what about the hull of the ship? And this is where, to me, the ship really falters. And I really don't like this ship in regards of its armor scheme. Only said I don't like the ship in regards of its armor scheme. I didn't say I didn't like the ship, so make sure you don't construe my words. The armor is very, very poor. It is bad. You have a massive citadel that is above the water. I would say basically that little paint on the side of the ship is basically showing you exactly where the citadel is. This thing is huge, guys. And I don't care where they put the slopes or whatever it is. It ain't helping you. You show in an ounce, a little bit, a millimeter of broadside, and you are taking citadels left and right and center. Not to mention, if you go against high caliber armor piercing, anything 380s or above, you only have a 25 millimeter schnoz right through your nose, citadel. And you'll see an example of that from a Schlieffen later on here in battle. There's just nothing you can really do, which is kind of funny because you would think a ship like the Defense and kind of the design philosophy would be maybe less attractive guns and more attractive armor. Armor that can kind of withstand a little bit more punishment. I mean, they didn't even decide to throw a super kill on the ship, which I'm not upset about entirely, just because I think Wargaming likes throwing around super heals left, right, and center nowadays, and smoke screens, which you don't get a super heal, but you get these fucking short burst smoke screens, which are very usable. I would say they're probably the most universally usable smokes out there. They allow you to pick engagements, fall off, that kind of stuff. But the smoke screens really don't fit the ship. I don't know why smoke screens are even on this ship. Your smoke firing penalty is 11.2 kilometers, and to make use of that, you're kind of sitting towards the back, which I don't really want to do anyways in my defense. But then again, if I push too far forward, I just get overmatched and slapped, which again isn't really what I want to do. So you kind of can see what I'm trying to talk about with you guys is that the ship really just doesn't really have a direct identity and a direction of where it wants to go, which is really confusing to me. And I think it's a kind of a missed opportunity of what the ship could have been rather than what it is. So that is very frustrating for me. Now, obviously, the heel is a little bit, I guess it is a little bit altered, a little bit changed every now and then, right? They kind of alter some stuff with that, kind of create a little bit of differences, maybe some stuff you don't really know right off the get-go, and I'll talk to you about it. I'll be comparing it to, like, the Des Moines, for an example, which I think is a very generic, or not, maybe not the Des Moines, but a very generic, ship to compare it to, as it's one of the two older cruisers in the game, right? So your repair. So this is the amount of damage that can be repaired of the ship. You have 60% that can be repaired. Obviously, this is with that heal, which I'll get into in a little bit. Your Citadel repair, usually it's what, 10%? You do have the up to 33%. You do have a torpedo protection of 19, which is actually not terrible. Again, you don't want to be eating torpedoes, but you do have a little bit of a safety net, so to speak. And then when it comes to the actual healing values of the ship, you have 3 charges base. Your action time, again, is 28 seconds. HP per second is 364, with total healed is 16.8. So it is a little bit altered. It is a little bit buffed, I guess, if you want to say that. Again, minor changes, really not going to be that noticeable to the naked eye, so to speak. But you do have some stuff working in your favor. Personally, is it enough? With the way the ship is designed, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it leaves much to be desired, personally. I think that this ship just really doesn't know what it wants to be and what it wants to do. Obviously, here's a good example of just, your slower reload compared to like that of a Haragumo or whatnot. Obviously, we're in an arms race battle, and arms race isn't really a good example to showcase to you guys, or anything, because I try not to, because there's too many buffs going on. It's hard to keep track of it, so you guys have to keep that in mind when you're watching this particular replay. Not the next one. I don't think the next one is arms race, or maybe it is. I don't know. I don't like doing arms race, but personally, on a side note, I'm not a big fan of the game mode arms race, because I think it leads to one thing and one thing only: blowouts. I don't know what it is, but every time I play arms race, it is a fucking blowout. Unless you have competent DD players or CV players that know where to position their fighters and hit strategic targets, your team's probably going to get blown out, or your team will blow out the other team. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So I guess another thing to talk about this ship would be the ship actually does have torpedoes. You're seeing that on your screen. They are forward mounted. They are the underwater squiggles, like you see how like on the St. Vincent line. The torpedoes actually hit pretty hard. The damage is 21,000, which is not bad at all, and they have a range of 10 kilometers, which I didn't realize when I first picked up this ship or was fighting against her. I thought they were like 6 or 8 kilometer torps, so they actually go 10-kilometer range. So high fire chance. The reload time is 90 seconds base, and the speed of 67 knots with a detectability of 1.7 kilometers. That's giving you a reaction time around 9.4 seconds. The torpedoes are pretty hard, and again, with Royal Navy, or going in line with typical Royal Navy fashion, they can be launched single launch as well, and you do have 4 per broadside, so you could definitely utilize these torpedoes as, in my opinion, you want to utilize these torps as more of a anti-pushing torpedo to mitigate people from wanting to get in close and personal. I really wouldn't use these torpedoes to push. You certainly can, but again, that's just me and how I would do it. So there's a good example of a nose citadel. Again, you know, the second you think you're angled, the people, they know right where to shoot. They'll go aim right for your nose, because it's just such a massive target, and you have such a massive citadel that it's almost like they could spray paint the area red and be like, hey, shoot here, you will get rewarded. So it's very frustrating for me. I would have liked to see some more improved armor plating or something on the ship to help mitigate that, rather than getting absolute shit pumped every time. But hey, what are you going to do? They're not going to change it anytime soon, or at all, or never. So it's something you just have to deal with if you happen to pick up this ship. Now, going into the, I guess I already talked about the consumables. You have your keel hydro and your short burst smoke generator, and you have your standard damage control party. So there's really nothing special in that regard. I guess the keel has a couple different altered stuff that I already talked about, but for the most part, there's really nothing too crazy going on with the defense. I think the real power of the ship lies in her main battery, which, if you look at her her vertical dispersion, which is a little bit improved, very minimally, but it is a little bit better. And her sigma is coming in at 2.05, which I'm sure is pretty standard for cruisers, right? So again, really nothing out of the ordinary here. The guns do feel rather comfortable, though. I will have to point that out. Like, when I'm playing the ship, I really don't get trolled by dispersion. Even with 6 guns, I do find the artillery to be pretty damn accurate and consistent. And usually my shells are going exactly where I want them to go, which is nice. I think some cruisers are a little bit more up in the air, more of a flip of a coin where they're going to be going, but not the defense. And which is crazy because it only has 6 guns, right? So you do have to keep that in mind. But the guns are massive, so it's a typical thing that you see. Like, I think another example of that is like the Siegfried at tier 9. But again, that thing has a little bit improved accuracy, and those are 380 millimeter guns, which means you can overmatch 25 millimeters. We can only overmatch 24 with this, which is not really crossing that, impactful threshold. But you do have the improved ricochet angles, and you do have those little bit heightened fuse times, which is going to allow you to really schwack a lot of cruisers. This is a glorified cruiser killer. That's how you want to play this ship. So if you are an enemy cruiser and you see this thing firing armor piercing at you, you're gonna have to angle more so than you think you do, just because of those bigger, larger caliber guns and ricochet angles that are improved. But as we're watching the last battle here, I guess it's time to talk a little bit about, do I like this ship? Is it worth it? If you've made it all the way to this end of this video, congratulations. Most people usually don't. They just listen to shortened snippets of the video and then comment something that I didn't even say, or taking what I say out of context. So hopefully you're not one of those people, because I have to deal with those people, sadly, quite a bit, which kind of sucks. So anyways, as a cruiser main, as someone who loves their cruisers, do I enjoy playing the defense? Yeah, at times. I actually have fun playing the ship. I guess, one thing I do want to talk about too, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so I do enjoy playing this ship. I just reminded myself, sorry, when I'm seeing the damage ticking going up here. I do enjoy playing the defense from time to time again. It is a ship, again, I have a lot of ships, so I don't usually gravitate towards a ship like this. But I like playing ships that are a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more high octane. That's why my favorite cruiser in the game is like the Des Moines, for an example. Ships that are aggressive and high risk, high reward ships. And the Defense for me is just not really one of those ships. It really doesn't like scratch my itch, so to speak. It doesn't handle particularly well either. I think it has like the second worst acceleration for its tier. I think the next being is at the Stalingrad. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I'd rather play other ships, in my opinion. They're going to have faster DPM, a little bit more guns, that kind of stuff. The Defense for me is just bleh. I don't know. It's not a bad ship, and I don't want to like critique it that hard, but it's just definitely not like a good ship, is what I'm trying to say. So, but one thing that I forgot to mention with the Defense is that it does, I believe, take damage, flood and fires the same length as battleships, because you're like fitting that, like, I don't know, super cruiser roll, battle cruiser roll, whatever you want to call it, that these like heavier cruisers go into, like the Stalingrad, the Aegir, the Sevastopol, those kind of ships. They do clock and tick the length of battleships, which kind of sucks. It's a big mitigating factor and a big negative to a lot of these ships, and why I think a lot of people don't have as much fun in these ships as they think they're going to have, because you really just can't go in there and expect to come out on top, because usually you're going to be shot at with a lot of other things, and it's a big weakness is flood and fire system, especially fires. You will be finding yourself burnt down a lot just because you're clicking out or ticking out the length of 45-minute long fires, which sucks ass. So that is one thing I forgot to mention, so I do apologize for that. There's so many things that I want to cover in a ship sometimes that sometimes I just simply forget. So good thing I caught myself with that. But going on, like when I say if I enjoy this cruiser, and I said there's times that I do and there's times that I don't, which again, that can be said to pretty much generically across the board with every ship. So that's not really like a defining thing. So where's my stance on this ship? I would rather play something else, in my opinion. And that being said, the price of 415,000 coal is a little bit steep, and I think rather frustrating for me, because I don't think it's worth 415,000. I would say at a minimum, if you're interested in picking this ship up, you gotta have to pick it up with a coupon, because if you're spending that amount to pick up this ship, that is just, I can flat out tell you, it is not worth it. Not worth the price at all. Wait for the coupon and then make your decision from the coupon. And even then, the coupon's bringing it down to what is it? Is it 200 something thousand? I'm not 100% sure on the math on that. I don't know if it's a 50% off maybe or something like that, but it's bringing it around that mark, and then that's a little bit more reasonable, and then that's up to you to choose. But then again, you could pick something up from like the Napoli, for example, which is already 260 or 250,000 coal, whatever it is. You use your 50% coupon on that, and that's already bringing that drastically lower, which is just inherently a way better ship, in my opinion. And it's just going to be more fun to be had in that ship, which I think is very important when coming, spending your coal, right? People want competitive ships, people want fun ships. Sometimes you get lucky enough and get them both. But it is few and far between, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about ships, and a lot of people think, oh, if this YouTuber can do this in this ship, then fuck sure as hell I can be able to do it. And that's just not the case, guys. Definitely not the case. And you want to make sure that you you do your research a little bit. And that's what I'm trying to do with this channel. I'm trying to showcase these ships a little bit more, talk a little bit more about them than the average YouTuber, just because I think there's a lot of construed information out there about if a ship is good or if a ship is dog shit. And that's one thing I want to talk about when it comes to people labeling ships dog shit. That is purely opinion based. And again, there are a lot of ships that the community finds that are trash that I fucking adore, and that I can do work with. At the end of the day, if you like a certain ship and you can make that ship work, I doubt you're probably calling that ship trash, okay? A big one that I've seen is the Neptune. People hate the Neptune. I love the Neptune. I think the Neptune is a great ship. I think it's criminally misplayed a lot. I think the meta doesn't really favor that ship. So I understand why people can say certain things like that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to you and your opinion. So don't let people stray you one way or the other just because they don't like something or they love it, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to you and about who you trust. I think you should listen to everybody's opinion about the matter if they're going to say factual stuff about it and say, I don't like this said ship because of X, Y, and Z, rather than just saying, I fucking hate this ship because it's ass. You know what I'm trying to say? There has to be something factual, something that has a meaning, that has a purpose behind what they're saying, validity, rather than just saying something to say it because people are just assholes, I guess, for the most part. I don't really know. So that's just one thing that really bugs me, is when people say, no, ship's dog shit. Okay, why? Why is the ship dog shit? You're just shit at playing it. Okay, great, thank you. It's not really helping me out here. Okay, it's not really like selling me or persuading me not to pick up this ship. Like, that's not helping. You have to say reasons why. State it why. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say with it. So, but yes, this was the Defense. I wanted to just make this video out there to get it out there because this is like the latest ship that's added to the Armory. And I know a lot of people are asking whether or not this ship is worth it. What do you think? That kind of stuff. And this is my take on it. Get another ship first. Don't get this ship if there's still other ships on the table that are just flat out tested and true. Like the Napoli, for example, is one that really pops to mind. Hell, I even like the Aegir. The Aegir's at tier 9, and it's going to get improved credit income. This is not even a premium ship. This is one of those special ships, so you're not even going to get improved credit income with this thing, whereas like the Aegir, you will at tier 9. And that just, to me, for players that are starting off, don't have the armada like what I have, don't have 500 plus ships, I think getting a tier 9 premium is a little bit more smart rather than investing in a special ship at tier 10 just to have fun in. You know what I mean? I think tier 9 ships, especially now, which with the price drop, are way more worth picking up rather than the special ships, in my opinion, just because of the credit income that's improved, and at the tier, I think the tier is a good tier as well, though you have to be careful of the double up tier. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and my take on the Defense. Tell me your opinions on her. What do you guys think? Please comment down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Stay safe and have a good one, guys, and peace out.